Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Lume.
Yes, the Lume.
The Lume.
Yes,
The Lume.
welcome to the Lume, everybody.
Yeah.
Apparently we're renaming our podcast.
It's been too long. We spent way too long with our intro, so that's why we actually said, okay, we have
we'll
to shorten
it down.
Every word
We're
counts.
Officially known as Lume, and then in a couple of days we'll just be L. But that's not a bad name, though.
And then
the
we
Lume.
just podcast.
That's a pretty good name for a podcast. The Lume Podcast.
The Lume.
No,
So,
we're still the Lume Plotters.
We are actually talking about a brand that has a lot of watches that don't have much lume.
Yes, correct. So it's the anti-Lume Plotters.
Yes, indeed.
So we came back yesterday. Before we even go there, should we mention what you're wearing?
Yeah.
What I'm wearing?
I am wearing my Vacheron Constantin Overseas silver dial.
It's such a plain watch, and that's why I like it. You know what I mean?
It is.
No,
yeah.
I love these monochromatic colorways. Silver dials are one of my favorites.
And I love it because it has this black hands, so it's really super easy to read the time. So I like that.
Legible.
And you can, dress it up and down with a different quick exchange straps, which is super cool.
Yeah, and once again, silver dial goes with everything,
Yeah,
right?
I have blue, I have white, I have black, I have black leather. It's cool.
It is. And
What
I'm
are you
also wearing silver dial.
Oh.
Same watch I was wearing yesterday, my JLC Reverso. The medium with the small seconds. Monoface. And the reason I'm wearing this, obviously, is because we are talking about JLC. Yesterday, we were at a JLC event.
Indeed.
The second JLC event in a year now, I think?
I know.
Was it longer than a year?
That was longer than a year. The Stellar Odyssey was 2 years ago. Yeah, more than 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. It feels like last year.
It was during the pandemic still, I think. Yeah, one of the first ones.
No, it was after the pandemic. We weren't wearing masks by that point.
I think it was just about when we stopped wearing the masks. Yeah, it was a great event, the Stellar Odyssey. This was at Dubai Mall, right? They had built up something on the water. Actually, a big tent was
very nice.
Incredible of what they have done. And this is a touring event, an experience, basically, the same as this year, right? I mean, they have this specific topic, and then they tour the world for couple of weeks in each location and have their trainers, their watchmakers, and of course their entire collection and some historic pieces there to showcase. And this was and this particular one which we went to, which was called the Precision Pioneer exhibition, and that consisted of 4 different parts. Basically, it was the watchmaking exhibition, the artistic experience with the light painting from Roy Wang, the culinary experience, which we will probably discuss in great length.
Yes, we will. That was the takeaway.
And the watchmaking experience, where we were all dressed in watchmakers' uniforms and these white lab coats, and were trying to work on pinions and other things.
Yes. Which we'll talk. We'll go through all of these.
No, I just give the general
the general
of
gist
these
of it,
4 different pieces. And while JLC offers you these kind of experiences in their head office, I mean in their manufacturer in the Vallée du Joux, they do charge for it together with a whole factory tour. It's about 300 Swiss francs, takes about 5 hours. It's absolutely recommended to do that if you are in Switzerland. It's a lovely thing, and you can always walk in the manufacturer and have a look around there, so they're open to the public. But in this case, when you have these traveling experiences, you get this. If you get a space, if you register early enough, you get this for free. Obviously not the manufacturer tour, because we are not in Switzerland, but the other experiences there. So that's a really, really cool thing. So why do you think they do this, Mart?
So this is exactly why I said we should do this episode. We were going to record something, yesterday, but then we didn't do it.
Nope.
At the end of the day, we were with a friend of mine, and he asked, and this is exactly what kind of made us want to talk about this. He said, they being JLC, spend so much money putting these events together. And what do they gain from this? Essentially being that, a random person is not going to walk by the street or by this thing, pop in and say, well, I'll buy a JLC now. And so that was that. His question is what do they gain from this besides helping or doing something for their existing clientele? Because that's who they're targeting with this, is the existing clientele. Are we, the existing clientele, going to buy more watches or other watches? Or are they trying to target new customers? So we kind of need to think about this whole thing. What do they gain from this type of advertising, so to speak?
Yeah. So,
and what do we want? Let's talk first about the event.
Okay.
And then at the end, we'll wrap up with why they do this.
All right.
Okay. So, I guess we could start out with how everything came about. So first and foremost, I received, I don't know how, I sent you an invite. You also received an invite from the boutique or what?
Yeah.
So we all got invites from the boutique, essentially. When you do go to these boutiques, they ask you, put your name on a list. Generally, you put your name on a list with a phone number, and this is how you end up going to these events. And they will send you a message and say, why don't you stop by, make an appointment, and you can do this event. So we ended up showing up, and I didn't know what to expect coming from the previous one that we have done in Dubai Mall, which was massive. So this time it was in DIFC. In
our
this
financial center
Brookfield,
in Dubai,
so Dubai International Financial Center, which, by the way, I've never been to this place called Brookfield Avenue or whatever it's called.
One building complex there,
was looking through there the names of who is in this building, right? And I counted, I think Ernst & Young had 7 different offices. There's like Ernst & Young Legal, Ernst & Young this, Ernst & Young that. So apparently these are the companies in here.
Yeah, it's all financial, banks, insurances, and consultancies.
But here's the thing. I didn't know that we had a Bank of America or a JP Morgan Chase in Dubai. And apparently we do. So it's very interesting. I bank with Chase, so that's why I had no idea that we even had a branch. Not a branch, so to speak, but I don't know what the hell they do.
Well, I don't think you can go to the counter and withdraw some money from your savings account. That's not what they're doing there now. But
what are they doing?
I think it's all about, this is being close to the financial markets here in the region for various reasons. And of course, they might have some private banking and some high-profile customers.
High net worth individuals.
Look after. Yeah, to a certain extent, absolutely.
Not me. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So this was the financial center. So this gives you an idea of what type of place it is. And therefore, the people walking back and forth in front of this little pop-up probably are the right clientele to spend 40, 50, 60 and up K on a new watch, right? So I think these are the guys 100%. That would. Yeah. So I think the place they put this was already better than the Dubai Mall was, I think.
Yes, definitely. You have a more precise target audience there. Sure, just visually to see that event. Yeah.
So so we walk in. We had signed up just for a regular tour, but then we realized that they were doing the watchmaking event again. So we tried to kind of ask if there's any cancellations. Could we please get into the watchmaking event? Magically, out of 10 seats, there was 3 cancellations. So the 3 of us were able to join. And it was a packed house, right? So it was full 10 people. I think there was even 11, right? So it was kind of interesting that we happened to just be able to squeeze in. And that was the first thing we did. And they basically started us with, first they showed us some kind of a pinion thing, right? I don't know what it was. They had 2 versions. One was the actual size from a watch, which was absolutely minuscule. And then they had a large one. And that was
Yeah.
hundreds of times larger.
Yeah.
Right? And then they gave us the activity of measuring them, right? So that was, I think you were a little late, so you might have missed this
We have learned about the millionometer and the microns measurement instruments that Antoine Lecoultre has
developed.
Yeah. So it's interesting because the history is there in the Vallée du Joux. They're actually both of the Gégère and the Lecoultre. Both are basically have their origin in France, but the Lecoultres came in the 1500s somewhere as Huguenots from France to escape persecution to Switzerland, and then eventually they met each other historically. So it became Gégère Lecoultre. But in the beginning, Antoine Lecoultre started building up his watch workshop, and he started with tools, right, and just making things.
For other people, right?
Sure.
But in addition to this, there were watches in certain markets that were branded Lecoultre, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but that is much later. What I'm saying is in the beginning, there 1800, whatever you're talking about, 31 or 33, when he started with this little workshop, he created these kind of tools, the pinion cutting machines and all of this stuff, which we then saw either in the original form, because they had it actually in the room with us, or in a video form where they showed us these instruments that he developed and was using at the time. And that was a time before electricity, right? So
so the guy it was a pedal actuated thing with a belt, right?
Everything
so you
was
pump the pedal
manually
like
driven.
An old sewing machine.
And the one thing that I found interesting, and it reminded me of how important and how we actually think today, that we can work at any time, right? We can work at night. We can work when it's dark. Watchmaking doesn't work when it's dark if you don't have proper lighting. So
they mentioned this, that basically the number of windows you had was indicative on how prosperous your watch company was.
Because the more windows, the more watchmakers you had.
Exactly. So, which was funny to think about in that sense. I'm richer than you because I have more windows.
Yeah, and this is usually on top of your farms, right? Because they started to do this during the winter months when there was no farming and not much happening to the livestock. So they actually had spent their free time of making parts and doing fine mechanics and all of this stuff. Very distributed way of doing things, right, at the time.
Yeah.
But they became very quickly, very quickly, they became very big and had like 480 employees within a couple of years and became the Grande Maison, as they were known back in the days. So JLC in general has a lot of different names to them. I mean, like let's say nicknames, right? They're the master of complications. They're the master of precision. And two more things that I forgot. I think
the watchmaker of watchmakers, or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of things that these guys are known for, and that's it's really incredible if you see this. They're little, what do you say? They're little. They're incredible names that they have to them, right? I think there's watchmaking and sound is one of the things, the precision, and then of course their whole celestial stuff, like what we see in a Solar Odyssey in the event 2 years ago, where they actually just do these incredible astrophysical complications, basically. Yeah, it is really a fantastic.
So back to what we were doing in that little workshop,
besides
right? So
we
got to measure these things from using the the kind of larger versions of what Antoine Lecoultre would have used. And then we basically used another tool which pressed jewels into a bridge that housed the drivetrain of a watch, right? So it was essentially the driving, or whatever you want to call it, the running gears in a watch. Each one, it was a much larger version again. Each one there's 3 gears. Each one had 2 jewels, one on either side. And apparently they were trying to show us that, how difficult it is to get these to spin perfectly, right?
You have...
So I messed up. when I was building mine, I over tightened the jewels.
Mhm.
And when you over tighten the jewels, the gears don't spin.
Yeah, or they grind too hard.
When they're too
they're
loose,
not, yeah.
yeah, when you're too loose, you're wobbling all over the place. So
Yeah,
basically, they have to
you
press
basically-
these.
Yeah, how you can explain that is what we saw is we have an axle that is held on both sides with a little jewel. And if you have too much space between these jewels, then this axle can move up and down. So depending on how you hold your watch, the ratchets of the teeth
Might not
of the
line
wheels might not line up, and then it doesn't work properly. So there has to be a bit of play, but not too much. If you tighten it too much, so that would press the axle together, and then it wouldn't spin freely again. If you do it too loose, then it might just lose contact with the teeth of the wheels might not just lose contact in certain angles. So it's a bit tough. And then we did this in probably 100 times magnification or something. And obviously we had like 3 wheels or 3 axles and 5 wheels together somehow connected. And that's nothing really for a complicated watch, right? So and if you think about how do you actually put this together in a watch that is also like ultra thin, where the amount of between being too tight and too loose is, I don't know how much. I mean, that must be microns. I guess that's why
Microns,
have this measurement tool. And the funny thing is, we had actually this tool to actually screw it down, which had an indication of where we are, basically, of how much we extended it, right? So
I was looking at this.
I was just doing it by feeling.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. And I was looking at it. There was no 0 point. So you wouldn't actually know how far deep you are. But then at the same time, depending on the thickness of your kind of whatever you want to call it, the metal, the plate that you have the thing inside, and it wouldn't make any difference. So I think it's all relative. So you know that, okay, I have now pushed it in 5 microns.
Yeah, and what surprised me is how precise everything has to be, right? I mean, because this jewel is basically pushed into the base plate just by friction, right? So there's nothing that actually holds it exactly in that place other than friction. And still, because everything is so tiny and so light, I mean, you could have this little pinion that you talked about earlier, right? That it was so tiny that if it wasn't in a small box glued into it, you just breathe and it would fly away, right? I mean, this little piece of metal.
Yeah.
It's just so tiny that you wouldn't, it's a speck of dust, basically, right? So it was incredible. And if you see these kind of micro parts, and that's what I think it's the explanation of why the friction does work, because it's not too much of weight, even if you have the thousands of G that might hit the watch when you drop it. It's still a light piece, right? So the friction is enough to keep it in place in these parts, which are not shock absorbed, obviously, right? But in any case, it is insane stuff.
Yep.
So we did a couple of these little exercises, learned a lot about history and about this.
Yeah, it was an hour and a half long.
Yeah, it was very good. I was definitely recommended to do that. It's just so exciting, and we were a nice group of people as well. There was it was pretty mixed. We were half male, half female, which is also very, very interesting to see. That you have such a female audience in these kind of watchmaking events, which is very, very cool. Yeah, like that.
But it was always funny because last time we did this, there was a woman in there with us, and she knew nothing about watches. And I was thinking to myself, like, this is strange. Like, you're really jumping in the deep end here, right? And from knowing nothing to let's do a workshop. And it's strange to me how they asked her, have you heard of JLC? And she said, no. And do you know anything about watches? She said, no. Do you own a watch? No. And so it was really coming from zero. And to say, you know what? I'm going to devote an hour and a half of my time to sitting on this stool and to learn something that I have nothing. It's the equivalent of me going and sitting in some, art studio learning about, some new painting style
Yeah,
that I care nothing about.
absolutely. But I think that is curiosity, obviously.
Yes.
And it absolutely enables your creativity because I heard this from a guy who's always coming up with new products and new designs and new things, who basically told me what I'm doing is when I'm flying. Every time I'm flying, I'm going to these big magazine shops in the airports, right? These shops that have like 100,000 of different magazines. And he says, and then I go and buy a magazine or 2 or 3 for my flight that I have it from an industry or an area that I have no knowledge of and that is absolutely not my thing. That could be a hunting magazine or a bridal dress magazine or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah,
So
it's roughly the same thing.
out of your own swim lane or so. And then you take this and you flip through it and you just read it and think if there's anything that from that industry that you could apply in yours or whatever it might be, right? Because these kind of cross-pollination, whatever, the ideas that you might find in other places are really helping your creativity. And I think this is really cool. And of course, this lady, I guess, when she went after this kind of workshop, out of the workshop, was pretty impressed of this world of watchmaking that she had no idea about. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And suddenly this opens up and you think like, wow, this is incredible. There's a whole industry, millions of people working in it.
But how many of these industries exist? I mean, it's indefinite, right? Infinity, weird, random industries that you know nothing about. And this is people's not just hobbies, but their livelihood.
Totally.
So it's really funny.
I had a colleague once who made his own these when you're fishing, when you're angling, these sinkers.
Oh, the baits.
The baits. And oh my God. I mean, just search for that on YouTube of how many people are actually making their own and how they do it. And there's an entire universe of this around it as well. So there's so many things, so many hobbies that you can have.
I was chatting with a guy at a party 2 weeks ago, and he was into aquariums. And they were going through and talking about all the things about aquariums and how, it's also another crazy hobby. Fish, like keeping fish, right?
Yes.
It's so strange. So that's another apparently huge, what do you call it?
Water, filtration, light, the food, the fish itself, and all of this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So
anyway, So from the group that was there, how many? That it was 9 people. I just mentally counted them, and 2 instructors. We had a watchmaker and a trainer as well. So the lady was also a watchmaker and a trainer. She was training people worldwide in their boutiques and stuff on the background and the watchmaking technology of JLC. And so we were from these 9 people. How many people wore JLC?
2. Me and Adrian. Oh, it's counting the 2 plus the 2. The woman was wearing a ladies reverso. I didn't see what the guy was wearing. The other watchmaker.
Me neither. No, I didn't look.
Yeah, I couldn't see, but 3 JLCs.
But clearly, that's exactly what you want. You want to have people who are not yet customers.
Yes, correct.
And get
I saw one guy was wearing a vintage 2-tone Datejust. One guy was wearing a ceramic Submariner. On one hand, on the other hand, he had an Apple Watch.
Yeah, that was a Starbucks or Hulk. I think it was a Starbucks. It was green.
I thought it was black.
No, it was green.
I thought it was just a regular black one. I couldn't see, my colors there. And then we had this absolute crazy person that was wearing this Blancpain. A very, very crazy man.
I don't know who would wear that.
What kind of individual? Showing this Hunter caseback thing to everyone. Very strange.
Yeah.
Couldn't get him off.
Well, there was a topic that we talked about. These it was the magnetism, right? One of the dangers of watches, that they're exposed to, and how they do a soft iron cage, and why they actually don't like the soft iron cage because you can't make transparent casebacks. Yeah.
Yep.
That's when I showed up.
But it was funny because we didn't think about this. Yeah, exactly. So it was funny because they kept saying like it's in front of you. Like, why do you think we stopped making these iron cages? And we were like, because the materials were too expensive, this, that, we thought of everything. It was too thick, it was too thin. And then they were like, no, we just wanted to see the movement.
But I also think that there is a way. I think some watches have a transparent case back and still have a soft iron cage. Not really a cage. It's a ring around the movement, which apparently also helps somehow absorb magnetism, even though you have a transparent case back. So it's not as good as a full cage.
But 90% of the magnetism is now reduced, if not 100%. We're talking between 90 and 100 with the silicone hairsprings, right? So
so the main reason what you want to protect is the hairspring, right? For timekeeping, for magnetism. But anything else in the movement that gets magnetized can also be bad, right? So there's a couple of areas where you have to use anti-magnetic, amagnetic, ideally materials, which is of course not as easy, but these silicone hairsprings, parachrome, and all of the different alloys that are being used recently to make these hairsprings less magnetic is good.
By the way, one more thing. So the lady, the trainer, was wearing a reverso.
Yeah, both of the trainers, you have to say,
I was wearing a reverso.
Fantastic, fabulous.
Then my friend was wearing a reverso.
Mm-hmm.
Then we ran into the boutique manager of Dubai Mall Boutique. He was wearing a reverso. And now I'm thinking about it. I didn't see anyone wearing a JLC that was not a reverso.
Okay.
Did you?
Nope.
Exactly. Every JLC I saw was a reverso.
Mm-hmm.
Which, we could go into this as well a little bit later, but this is kind of, I guess, one of the core issues with JLC and their branding is becoming the one-trick pony, kind of.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I would say you could say that it's an issue. But I also feel, when did this came out? This was when you think about the reverso, I think which year was that?
1914, I believe. 14?
I think
32,
so. They
34?
started in 1833, and I think
who? The
JLC,
reverso? No,
JLC. And then I think the Atmos came in 1928, which is funny that they had this.
31 for the reverso.
Then
31.
The movement 101, they had this in 1929, and then reverso 31. Yeah, exactly. 1931. They had the reverso.
It was discontinued.
Really?
For a very, very, very long time.
Okay.
If you didn't know about this, essentially they stopped production in the 40s. They only made it for like 10, 15 years. And then they said, okay, we good. And then they stopped making it. And it was, the story goes, I don't know, this is not the time for the story, but nonetheless, there was someone after, this was, I guess, around World War II, they stopped and they didn't start again. And then somebody, I'm not sure who, I don't remember, was walking through the JLC factory.
Okay.
And found essentially 100 or so cases. This was around 1975, if I remember correctly. So they found 100 of these cases. And so this was once again about 40 years after it was discontinued. And so they said, okay, cool. I'll take these. Can you put some movements in it? They said, all right, we could put some movements in it. So the guy bought these 100 or so watches, immediately sold them.
Mm-hmm.
In like I'm double checking my math here. 200 reversos sold in less than 3 months.
Okay.
The guy's name was Jacopo Corvo. And this was 100 in steel and 100 in gold. And this was in 1972. So essentially 32 years after it was discontinued. So then in 75, they said, okay, let's make a few more. And then they started making new. And in the 80s, the Grand Taille Reverso came out and ran basically all the way through the 90s and 2000s. The Grand Taille was what they called the large size, right? So the idea was that some of the Reversos the original size was too small
Okay.
So they wanted to make it a little bit bigger, but nonetheless, this Jacopo Corvo was the guy single-handedly responsible for bringing Reverso back from dead.
Interesting. So sometimes you see this, that there certain models are discontinued, they're relaunched in a big way.
Yeah,
so
but I mean, to discontinue it in 1940, I'm guessing there was a reason. And I'm assuming they were also not making other products during this time as well, as we know, right? Companies focused their production on war efforts. If they were making watches, they probably made watches specifically for military. Not civilians.
Not all of them. I mean, Switzerland was neutral, as we know, and only some watch manufacturers made actually military watches at the time. So, I don't know. I don't know what JLC did and if they were involved.
If they made anything for you, yeah. But, as we know, IWC, Blancpain, a whole bunch of companies were making for military.
Yeah.
Like Blancpain, of course, under their pseudonym, right? Due to the U.S. sanctions.
Yeah.
You know this story? Yes? You're familiar?
No.
No, okay. So basically... the U.S. has a law stating that if you want to use something for military use, it has to be made in the USA.
Yes.
By an American company. So they wanted Blancpain 55 years after, a little bit later, like in the 50s, 60s. They wanted Blancpain 50-fathom dive watches for the U.S. military. Well, can't do it because you can't have Swiss, manufacturing. So what they did was they essentially took apart a 50 fathoms, sent it to the US. An American company put it together, and they said American manufacturing.
Ravel Tornic, right?
Ravel Tornic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and they had to use the jewels, the American-made jewels. I remember that, and they said, okay, the quality was so bad at the time that they bought them, threw them away, and then cheekily still use the Swiss-made jewels to put them in the movement. Yeah. Strange. What you had to do, again, at the time now, I mean, I don't know if there's any jewels being produced in the US, but US watchmaking has also seen a quite nice resurgence. Anyhow, so...
meanwhile, one more thing is apparently...
Yeah.
We didn't know this, but now we know this. Guess what JLC was doing during World War II?
They made Panzer
the
grenades.
Mark 19, this is the Mark 11 pilot's watch. They made it in side by side with IWC.
Okay. So they were one of the many
both
suppliers.
Manufacturing. Yeah, they were one of the suppliers of...
Okay. All sides. All sides. All sides. Our sides. We are all neutral, right?
Yes, everyone's neutral.
Let's not talk about the war. So, after this watchmaking event and this nice event, there was 3 more things that we saw, right?
Yes.
One was let me quickly talk about Roy Wang and his light painting, because he made some really incredible pictures of watches and movements and even pocket watches that he has created. I think he's a Chinese artist, Roy Wang. I'm not 100% sure, but he is specialized photographer on these light painting methods, when you use a very long exposure and then use different light sources to paint, basically
draw things
onto the sensor or the film, basically, in the old times. And he creates spheres and patterns with his light, which are just incredible. I mean, I've seen a couple of his images and it's wow. I mean, it is really on the next level. I mean, we all try to do this with long exposure, right? With drawing a heart or your name or something. I think we all did that, but this is really incredible of how.
No, I mean this. I just Googled him, by the way. ROYWANG.
Yeah.
Put in Roy Wang light painting. There's a dragon he made.
It's just insane.
This whale across. It looks like the Shanghai skyline. I mean, there's some crazy stuff. I mean, super good looking.
100%, yeah. And these, I think this is what JLC does. Like, I think that's for me in my perception of JLC. This is like they're always bringing just the arts and culture together, right? Together, because I think they see themselves as artists too, right? With their watchmaking. They don't see themselves necessarily as just technicians producing watches or engineers. For them, that's art, right? Because the way they innovate, the amount of movements that they have created in their lifetime of the company. What was it? 1,400 different calibers that they have made. No other watch company, I think, in the world or in the universe even,
has made that much stuff.
Has made so many different calibers in their lifetime, and they used to really create. We're making a new watch, great, let's make a new caliber, right? So it's just like always very, very focused on that specific watch. They hardly reuse calibers too much between different watches. I mean, they have done this nowadays as well, but it's really, really interesting to see this. And then we had a nice exhibition, which I think we covered last, where we saw a lot of really cool old models, new models, and it's a nice education as well. So if you just go for the exhibition, it's still an amazing experience if you want to see all of these different
and
watches.
You do get to see some of the new watches, these dual metro watches. They're on display. Some crazy complication watches. Helio tourbillons. We were lucky enough to get to try them on, right? I think that is probably one of the most complicated things we've tried on ever.
This Helio tourbillon is a 3-axis tourbillon. 20 pieces will ever be made. It was a perpetual calendar.
No, I don't think so.
8 days.
That one was not.
No?
No, I don't think that one was. The perpetual calendar was something else.
I think it was.
Let me verify. I did take pictures. This one was. It was a perpetual. Wow.
See,
moon phase, perpetual calendar.
It had pretty much
big date, dual power reserve, and a Helio tourbillon. Sorry.
It's a perpetual réserve de marché quantième. So it was really, really,
and a réserve de marché régulateur.
Oh, yes.
It has 2 réserve de marchés.
That's because it uses 2 barrels and they're synced and all of crazy stuff. And they make 20 pieces of this. Will be sold for more than $1 million dirhams. So it's it's the closest I will ever get to that kind of watch. So that was really fascinating to see these kind of models and try them on and handle them, right? And
I think that was probably peak watch for us there. We got 3 of them, all 3 new releases. One is the Helio tourbillon with the perpetual calendar. The other one is the split-second chronograph with a dual moon phase. Or no, one's an AM PM indicator. The other one's a moon phase. God knows what else. There's a bunch of stuff in that one. And then the last one was a date moon phase dual power reserve with a 1/10 of a second register. I believe
that was 1/8 or 1/6 of a second. Anyways, it was pretty incredible.
Something. It was going around very quickly.
It's a watch movement that JLC already has for a while, but I think this is the first time in a steel case. It was really, really, really cool. Really lovely pieces. And then, of course, after all of this learning and interaction there, we were hungry.
I got tired. I was falling asleep a little bit. It was a lot of information to take.
So we went to the last event, the culinary experience, which was also part of this.
And that was ace.
So Himanshu Saini is a 2-starred Michelin chef who has...
Sounds Japanese, right? His name, when you told me Himanshu Saini, I was like, oh,
well,
Himanshu-san.
Himanshu is a very very Indian name though, but it's okay.
I had no idea it was an Indian name. But apparently.
Anyhow, he has a couple of different restaurants in the city here.
A couple would be an understatement. By the way, the guy was riddling them off.
Different versions.
Tons of them.
And again, he has 2 Michelin stars, so he's crazy, and he has created some kind of he's called the ingredient scientist, right? So the way he has mixed and matched different things. In this case, to reflect the Vallée du Joux.
We'll walk you through, everything that we ate. But apparently...
How he came and got inspired by the location.
We asked about this because we asked how this was, why it was what it was. And the idea was he was trying to mimic the looks of the Vallée du Joux.
And so the first one we ate was called Mysterious Forest.
Yes. And it looked like a forest.
Yeah, it was coming in a glass dome filled with smoke.
Yes. So it was supposed to represent the fog in the forest, right?
Yeah,
and there was
canapé was placed on a piece of moss, so it really looked like these eerie forests. Not eerie, just very mysterious.
So it was a little. Think of a those little. What do you call them? They're not crackers. They're like what the hell are they called? The sweets. They usually have fruits in it. A tart. Sorry, tart is the word I'm looking for. Tart. So imagine a tart pastry shell inside. From what my extremely elevated culinary sense gathered, it was basically a mushroom pate, right? Is what it tasted like. And then they had like these mushrooms, and they were tiny little mushrooms that looked like big mushrooms, and they were very, very tall, and they were standing straight out of it. And they were delicious.
No, it was really all of the four different
well, let's go one at a time.
It were delicious.
So what came with the side of this? Next to it, I thought it was like a consommé broth, but the guy told us it was an asparagus tea.
Yeah, asparagus and champignon cream
tea. It was tea. He called it a tea.
He called it a tea.
But at the end of the day, a broth is just a tea, right?
Yeah.
If I was to make chicken soup, it's a chicken tea.
Yeah, it was pretty spectacular. Yeah,
but it was amazing. It was, I think, that soup or whatever you want to call it, the tea was the best.
Yeah, that was our favorite, and that's why we talked so much about it. Then we had three more, which we don't have to go in too much detail. But it was the Pine Nut Delight, the Crimson Rosette.
What was the Pine Nut Delight?
That was the.
So the next one we got was the egg-looking thing.
Yeah, that was
which
with
exploded
the
in your mouth.
Outburst.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was essentially a pani puri, which is an Indian street food.
Yeah, that's usually the one with a small hole. It's a small dough that is fried, and then you
put some masala inside.
You put some different liquids and spices and ingredients, and some onions and all of the stuff inside. You put it in your mouth in one go, and then you bite on it and explodes. It's an outburst, as he says. There will be an outburst of flavors. In this case, this case was looking like a stone. It was actually, I think it was made of white chocolate, something like that. How it was created.
I don't think it was. It
wasn't dough, though.
No.
Anyhow, it was somehow.
What is a verbena, by the way? It's a flower.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just curious.
I don't know
what it was. Yeah, it is a flower. It's a blue, it's a flower of some sort. But anyway, long story short, it was some kind of a shell. I don't think it was chocolate because the next round had the chocolate white shell. So I don't think he would have used it twice. I don't know what it was.
But I felt it.
But
similar.
It had the texture and brittleness of chocolate, essentially, how it broke.
Yeah,
in your mouth.
Might have been something.
But it wasn't sweet.
Yeah, no, that's true. It wasn't sweet. Yeah.
Next, and that one was served in a bowl of some kind of bubbling. It was like
dry ice,
bubbling, dry ice. Yeah, exactly. So it was super smoky, super bubbly.
Smoky stuff there. That was really cool. Obviously, it was also visually very, very impressive. Everything. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
And everything was served with a different kind of tea or juice, depending. I mean, I think everything was called a tea in this case, but it was probably just a fusion of different flavors, which is, and I think this is one of his trademarks, I guess, to just create very, very specific mixtures of flavors and ingredients that are unusual, but create a very specific new flavor together. Right. So that's, and it was really certain things that I can 100% admit I have never tasted before in my life. these different combinations of flavors. So it was very interesting. I really liked it, and I really plan on going with my wife to one of his restaurants soon. So I really need to try this out.
No, it was very good. And well, okay. So next we got something that was served under a magnifying glass.
Yeah, yes.
That one was a chocolate shell on the bottom, and the top had flowers, a bunch of little flowers on it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what it tasted like, but it was served in a magnifying glass, which was super cool. And then you take the magnifying glass off the top, and it was like actually pretty small. But when you had looked at it with the magnifying glass, it looked huge.
Yes.
Don't remember what that was.
It's called
besides the white chocolate
Pine Nut
shell.
Delight, I think it was called.
Yeah, that one was sweet. But then the kicker, the second favorite of mine was the last one, which was reminded me of those Indian orange desserts. You know what they fry up?
Yeah.
The one with it was essentially like a little flower looking thing, and it was filled with beetroot puree and gorgonzola cheese or some type of cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
Goat
Gorgonzola
cheese,
I think it was.
and that one was fantastic.
Or was it goat cheese?
Really
Good question.
good. Yeah, one of the two.
It's very hard.
That was really good
because when you eat this in a combination together, it's really hard to taste or try to find out the individual ingredients, right? Because it gives you just this wonderful mix
it was very
together.
nice. And then we finished, and then we asked for one more of the first one, the mushroom one,
forest, yeah,
because that one was truly awesome.
It was really nice.
And then I went home and stopped at a gas station and bought a hot dog.
Yes,
because I was still hungry.
That's the downside of this extremely high end cuisine is most likely that the portion size are sweet. But I mean, are quite small. You shouldn't go when you're hungry, right? This is not to fill you up. This is to just enjoy.
That I stopped on the way home. The Adnoc did have 1.5 Michelin stars.
1.5.
So not quite.
Okay,
it was only 1.5.
Okay.
But the hot dog chef that made it for me squirted such a nice pattern of mustard. It was lovely.
Yes. Did you have the Dijon mustard, or do you have Swiss mustard?
The yellow mustard. No, it was the dirty yellow mustard.
Yeah, I have a mustard basically out of my hometown, which is I would call it's Löwensenf, right? It's lion mustard, it's called.
Okay.
And it's a stronger mustard. I love it, but it's some people say, especially when you compare it to the French and the Dijon mustards and all of these different mustards and how they have finesse and everything else, our version of the mustard is more a bit like a sledgehammer, right?
Yeah.
It's
always less pasty as well, right? You get grains of mustard, and it's like
with the fine ones. Ours, which I grew up with, is a bit more like it's a honest to God strong mustard, which is good, but not in super high end, right? So
Well, but now recently I started eating the British mustard or English mustard,
okay,
with the horseradish or whatever they put inside, and it's super wasabi spicy.
Yes, I love horseradish. Horseradish is amazing.
The British got some good mustard. Then that to me now is like it's essentially the working class mustard, right? It is very, very good. So the sausage.
Yep.
Anyway, okay. So essentially that was a whole wrap up of what we did there.
And what a lovely event. And now the question we have to answer in the next 10 minutes.
They spent millions and millions and millions of dirhams on this, right?
Yeah. I think this is not cheap to make. There's lots of people who work there. There is a lot of people who've flown in, all of them, just the insurance to get everything here, move it around countries and all of the stuff must be incredible. So there's a lot of effort.
Michelin star chef.
Totally, yeah. And all of this stuff is provided for free to the customers to actually visit. So it's just mind-blowing, great event. And you ask, and as Adrian asked, why would they do this? Do you really think they sell more watches doing this? Yeah.
And that's what spurred on this whole conversation,
exactly.
Right?
And I think we recently saw that I think with the comments we heard from some of the JLC employees was, we don't want to be the humble behind the scenes watchmaker anymore. We want to be loud. We want to be seen. right? So I think, and then that's what.
And let's start with that. Are they really seen right now? And the answer is no.
No.
If you look back 10 years ago, they were never seen, right? You had to know, be in the know.
It was an insider brand, basically. Yes.
It was. Yeah. It was. And then now looking at this type of event, I mean, the size of it, the magnitude, and the fact that they had JLC written everywhere. Now, this is how you get this brand recognition. Even if you don't know what it is, people now start seeing the name. Once you start seeing the name, you kind of will see it again and again and again.
And sometimes it's not that you actually realize that you've seen the name or the logo, but you do subconsciously. Because I recently had somebody telling me like, I've never seen a Rolex advertisement. And I thought, do you watch Formula One? I said, yeah, of course. I said, next time you watch Formula One, just see how much time you actually see a Rolex logo or anything else on the TV. If you watch any kind of big sports, from tennis to whatever, horse racing, golf, they're everywhere, right?
So this is called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, right?
Is it? Because these are two Red Army faction terrorists from Germany.
Yeah. So
okay then.
Essentially, the idea is you don't know that you've seen it before, right? But then you keep seeing it over and over and over again. You have to prime the subject. So you show them the branding, and then from that point on, as soon as, because they might have seen it, it's like a sleeper agent, right? The person seeing something, they don't know that they're seeing it. As soon as you prime them and let them understand what this is, then they were now consciously, not subconsciously like previously. Now they will consciously make the effort of seeing it.
Yes.
And it's been all around the same time, right? The frequency of it didn't go up.
Yeah.
It was just now your eyes are open to this. And that's exactly what they're trying to do here.
And also, I think if you want to build a brand that has such a rich history, and you have to educate people. I mean, it is unfortunately like this. So marketing is important, and this is a way of doing it in a very, very sophisticated,
very nice way. Yeah. But let's also say this. There's a few issues that's holding JLC back. Let's start with that.
Okay.
One,
in our opinion,
in our opinion, one is, of course, as I mentioned, everyone that had a JLC had a reverso, right? That we saw. And that's one issue, is they do have this AP Royal Oak style mentality where the reverso is JLC and JLC is the reverso, and that is all. And that, of course, is not true. There are tons of other amazing watches, but then the question is, would you buy them? And that becomes another issue. The reverso, for me at least, has been fine-tuned over so many years and generations. The same thing goes with the ultra thin, the master, ultra thin, and these kinds of watches. But then when you have a Polaris, it's a little bit
the Polaris
haphazardly put together.
I don't think it's haphazardly, because it's also a watch with such a long history. In the 50s or so, their first
yes.
Polaris,
but if you look at the 50s style, the sizes were better. They were all coming with the complication of the Memovox. They only in the modern day did they remove the Memovox complication from the Polaris.
Yeah, I think what you have with the Polaris is a bit like I looked at it, and it's I think one of my favorite JLCs. I looked at it many, many times. I was a few times in the boutiques. Every time I fly, I look at the Polaris and I put it on my wrist and I think, it's a lovely watch, but there's still something holding me back not purchasing it. And I think some of it is rectified with the new dials that they have introduced a couple of years ago with the Fume dials, the new, that they were a bit flat, the dials on a distance. If you see them up close, you see the 3 different surface treatments and the different levels, but from a distance, you wouldn't see it that much. So I think it's a beautiful watch from up close, but from further away, it's just a bit too generic. It's not as iconic as it could be. The other thing that me as a watch enthusiast held me back was that small-sized movements that looks very small-sized.
Yes.
Other companies can do this better in hiding a small movement, even if they have a small movement in the watch. It doesn't look as small, but I think the way they use the spaces and these little things there in the back makes it look even smaller than it actually could look.
Yeah.
So that's a bit different from like an overseas where you have a really nice case filling movement in it, right? So anyhow, that's my point. There is iconic watches are missing. You have the Reverso, but you need to create a bit more. The master range is fantastic. There's really, really good watches in there. A bit boring, I would dare to say.
Yeah.
But that's not bad. You can do that. I mean, Lange watches are not necessarily exciting either. So they're also boring. But
here's the issue. Compounding this with the fact that if we look 10 years ago, a JLC was in the neighborhood of 20,000 dirhams for a Reverso, for a Master Ultra Thin, for a Polaris. Now these prices have doubled. Your base Reverso is 40K, your base Master is 40K, your base Polaris is 40K.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the issue. Let's take, I would say a good competitor to them would be Glashütte Original.
Okay.
And I don't know if you think they're good. Would they be in the same range to you? Because they're both got insanely good history, very good know-how in building, and they're both kind of underappreciated brands.
You're right. I think both of them are making everything by hand. There's very little machine making in it, or machine mass-produced things in these watches. Both are very unique. Not too iconic designs, unfortunately, for both of them.
I mean, barring the Reverso, once again, if we forget about the Reverso, they are very, very similar brands.
Yeah.
But if you look at the price point, a Glashütte is still, they used to be around 20,000 dirhams. They're still around 20,000 dirhams.
Which one can you buy for 20,000 dirhams?
So you can buy the Senator, for instance. The base level Senator is, I believe, 25K now.
Is it?
And then you get a discount, and with the discount, you're back to 19-ish. But these retail prices used to be 20. So essentially, they've gone up a few percent over the years, but they have nowhere near doubled. So now, the question is, when you look at those prices in Glashütte, you're like, okay, this is very reasonable. So the reason, and you mentioned this before the podcast to me, one of the reasons you might want to buy a Glashütte is because it's reasonably priced. I remember I have a friend, he bought the Senator Perpetual Calendar, right?
Yeah.
And the reason he bought the Senator Perpetual Calendar was because of the price. He said, I wanted a perpetual calendar, and this one was the best deal out there. And I think, if I remember correctly, he paid under 40, brand new, on the secondhand market, but essentially still brand new. I think retail for it was around 69 or something like this. But if you take the retail price, 70K, if you go back in time 10 years, the perpetual calendar from JLC, the Master Perpetual Calendar was also exactly at that price. I don't know how much it is now, by the way.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the normal Senator starts at 10,000 euros, roughly, with the time-only version in steel. And so they're basically the same, 40,000 dirhams nowadays.
Last time I went to the boutique was...
Yeah, I'm not saying that you can't get a... Yeah, so they're all pretty much in the same.
No, I was at the boutique and they were saying 19K is at Rivoli with discount for the Senator. And this is the Senator 60s, so I don't know which one you're looking at.
Oh, the normal Senator Excellence.
Senator 60s. Check out the Senator 60s range and look at the price of that one for me and tell me.
I don't think it's a Senator then, right? The 60s range.
Oh, no. They dropped the Senator. You're right. It's just called 60s now, but it used to be called Senator 60s. Okay. And they did change the name.
Still, I don't even know if there's
5,290 US.
Do you see that still on their website, the 60s collection?
Yes, 60s is still there. 60s is one of their very large sellers. Maybe even one of their. They do have a chrono still on there.
I don't see it in their collections.
They might have dropped it since the last time I saw
just
it.
Five.
I see Rivoli still has
5 collections. Yeah, that's true. But on their web, I mean, their website is their vintage collection. Yes, that's where the 60s are. Yeah.
Yeah, they're under vintage.
Okay,
correct. And how much is it?
60s chronograph, 60s panorama just a normal 60s. Okay, let's take the black one, 39 millimeters. Steel is 7,300 euros, including VAT.
So around 25,000 dirhams. And then discount, 19K is where you're at. Walking.
Yeah, I think 7,300. I think it's a bit more.
Show me one JLC on their website for this price.
No, you can't.
Exactly, and that's the issue. Is I think these
that's
are
29. Yeah, exactly 29,000.
I'm obviously looking at because they have million dirham watches at JLC. But we're starting at the bottom. Yeah, because the bottom is the easiest to compare.
Yeah, but I think this is there is a bit of a. I think from a historic perspective, I think JLC beats Glashütte Original unfortunately a bit, right? I mean, even though they started to make watches roughly around the same time in 1845, it's still something where I think JLC has just the width of watchmaking that is a bit broader. The patterns, 480 patterns, and 1,400 calibers, and so on and so on. So it's comparable, but I think you're right. There is a bit of a. Obviously, also Glashütte Original produces way less watches than JLC does, but it's still something where you think JLC has the problem with these iconic or really recognizable watches, and I think they had one, and I think they were just a bit ahead of time. The master compressor is nowadays very sought after, even in the pre-owned market. Prices went up recently a lot, and ladies like these watches because the ladies watches they had in the master compressor range
were really nice. Yeah,
were actually quite nice, but ahead of time. I think they have the ladies at that time didn't buy big chunky watches. Now for ladies. But now ladies want big chunky watches, and this.
But they also have the reversal ladies. They had other models. That
totally, and they have a very high percentage of lady customers, female customers. So my wife has two, but one is a master compressor, and one is a rendezvous.
And you have none.
I have none. That's the point. That's exactly the point. I have none.
And now, okay, wrapping this up. Essentially, the issue is now the prices have gone up.
Tremendous. One of the things I wanted to say is I think we can both agree that JLC watches, for what they are, from the brand recognition, from the brand history, from that kind of heritage, and from their watchmaking, they should be priced higher. They should have been priced higher even historically. I think they looked at their watches and thought, and what are we doing?
This is the idea of looking at something with rose-tinted glasses, right? You look back and you're like, but they used to be this much.
Yeah,
and as I said before, historically, a Rolex Submariner always cost the same as a Reverso. Yeah. Therefore, the Reverso stayed cheaper, significantly cheaper than the way that the Rolex Submariner prices have climbed. Now they're back to normal, right? Now they're back almost 1-to-1. But I still maintain that they should be more expensive.
Yeah,
I think the GLC should be more.
And I think you're absolutely right. They should be. You have to think about also in the Richemont brand, where are they located, right? Right now with the prices. There's Panerai, IWC in the same price range.
Which are all more expensive.
Which JLC should be above them.
Absolutely.
That's where they are.
And this is one of the issues. If you remember when Audi was first starting out, Audis were slightly more expensive than Volkswagens.
Yes.
And now they're considerably more expensive, right? So this is essentially, they made a slow shift upwards in perceived luxury as well as what they're doing. And this is what JLC is doing. But the problem is they move too quickly.
Yeah, but you know what? I think this is one of the things where you should do it. Probably what I think was their problem is
rip off the Band-Aid.
Is just do it, and then you have to you will be you have a short-term problem where you get a bit of a stick of the watch enthusiast and they're saying, well, what did you do? Oh my God. But then look long term, 5 years, 10 years from now, and people will have forgotten it, and that is now your level. But what I think was wrong, or let's say wrong, what was a bit of a controversial decision, was to increase the prices 4 or 5 times within 2 years. That's just a bit much.
That's nuts.
But every time you go into the boutique, it's
once again,
more expensive.
did the watches change? No.
Yeah.
My exact Reverso that I bought could have bought for 25K. Then I ended up, I told the story about how it was the next day, it was 28, and I was really pissed off, but I still bought it. And now that watch is 39, and I'm looking at it like it's the same freaking watch. Is it worth 40? Yes, it probably is.
Yeah.
But knowing that
other
this was also sold for 25.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, I do want to mention this. The secondhand market has now followed the price increases.
Not yet. No, it hasn't.
They will at some point. But now you can get some insane bargains where the secondhand market remembers the Polaris being 25K. And then all of a sudden, you buying them secondhand for 15. And which is what the used prices used to be. And now, but the watch is worth 40. To buy a 40K watch for 15K secondhand, a couple years old, is an insanely good deal.
100%.
So
these are watches
is the time
that can have 8 years warranty, right? You can extend the warranty on them. So wonderful watches. And I think this is a good point. This is the time to get into JLC because they're not going anywhere. They're part of the Richemont Group. They're one of the oldest watchmakers. I think
they're just going to get bigger and more expensive.
Exactly. I think they have now set their sights on a long-term strategy to move the brand upwards. And I'm 100% sure they will succeed in it because they have every ingredient they need for it.
Yeah.
So
and I think
if you want to get into JLC,
Vacheron level.
Get in now. Yes. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one big difference between the next level, so to speak, and this level is the number of stainless steel watches compared to the number of precious metal watches. I feel like JLC still sells more stainless steel than they do precious metal. That might be not true, but that's
I think that's every watch brand does it. Yeah.
No. I feel like when you look at VC and Patek, I think the percentage could be lower. I don't know. Once again, I don't know. Perceived.
Yeah.
From my end. But anyways, so point of story is that yes, we feel JLC should be more expensive. Is it a sting to see these price increases? Absolutely. Go buy a secondhand one before the prices of those go up. Will we see, to answer the whole question of what we were talking about, why are they doing these events? It's to get their name out there because only through recognition and education can they start charging more. Yeah,
they have worked so much in the background as the watchmaker is supplying others from Patek to I don't know who else they provided, Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin. Everybody has used JLC movements in the past or even currently. And they still provide this, but they were in the background and had their own brand. But now they're just saying like, okay, that's it. Now is our time. We are going full in and we want to be one of the big brands. And I think, as I said, they have what it takes. So they will stick to it. It is a long time plan. And I think they will definitely go somewhere because I love the brand. Yep. I think they're great. Get in there now.
I do too. All right. Anything else?
No, so we are properly brainwashed from this event.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I do still, going back to the fact that the Reverso, I feel, is the quintessential JLC. Once you have that Reverso, you end up with this problem of, do you want another JLC? And that, to me, is still a problem they have to overcome. If you look at this in terms of Rolex, do you want another Rolex? Mm-hmm. The answer is always.
But that's why.
Do you want another Omega? Probably. But do you want another JLC really?
Yeah, and so that's why I think if they work a bit more on the Polaris line, which we saw the show gave us a sneak peek of the new versions that are coming out in a week. When you hear this episode, they will be out. So that was really lovely to see these new models, and I think they're going somewhere. I think they're getting also better and better, incrementally better. Lovely new watches. So I think there you have it. You have a dive watch. You have your dress watch. Right?
Yep.
You might
And
have
then a reverso is a wild
another
card.
complication. That could be a reverso, but doesn't have to be. It could have the traditional style round watches with a nice complication there in the master collection or in the other collections. Yeah. And for the ladies, there's plenty of options as well. You can either do smaller men's sizes. I mean, it's all unisex nowadays anyway, or you just go for the Rendezvous, which is a lovely line as well for watches, and the ladies reversals, right? So plenty of choices there.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Anyway, all right. And once again, this whole mentality of selling one more expensive watch versus two cheaper watches to the same client, it could work, right, for them. So
Yeah,
let's see what
absolutely. But I think there's also, you can always trade in. When you trade up for another watch, if you're a person who just doesn't have many watches, just also there's a way upwards, right, in the same brand.
Exactly. All righty. Well,
and on that note, thanks for listening, and we hear you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.